and Cookstjatchen for the introduction. So
And we
I
might have
provided them could
expected,
be
but
Roseanne
it's
Casimir
evident-
of the Camels to Secwépemc. And, very honored to be here with Archbishop Michael Miller to be presenting today. So on behalf of us at Les Secwépemc and the Camels to Secwépemc, we thank you, everyone who's joined us today. As a First Nation with staff that is dedicated to investigating the missing children from a former Roman Catholic-run residential school, we have been dedicated to finding answers about the missing children from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. From the earliest days of breaking news of preliminary findings in May of 2021 to today, we have been very clear that we required cooperation from the Roman Catholic Church, particularly when it comes to accessing historical records. Going back to the summer of 2021, the Camels to Secwépemc Council and I passed a band council resolution to negotiate with the Roman Catholic Church about a path forward to information sharing and full transparency to identify and determine the truth related to missing children, including sharing of the archives and records in Catholic possession. An early draft of the covenant was developed by former Kamloops Secwépemc Chief Manny Jules and former Assembly of First Nations Chief Phil Fontaine. All the while, we continued to advocate for the need for the Roman Catholic Church's cooperation. This led me to be part of a very historical journey to address the Holy See, Pope Francis, about the atrocities that took place at the Roman Catholic-run Indian residential schools. I brought forth messages directly from survivors, as well as the realities of representing a First Nation now charged with the aftermath of a residential school, the sacred care of missing children in unmarked graves. I went to Rome with hope of building meaningful steps towards reconciliation while seeking justice in whatever form the families of the missing children seek, and towards renewal and rebuilding of relationships at every level. Some of the acts of contrition raised to the Pope Francis included real accountability from the Church, full disclosure of documents, funding to revitalize languages and cultures, and a mandate for all local dioceses to working with First Nations to determine what is needed to heal. To bring justice to the children who never made it home is to be able to identify who they are, bringing peace to their families and truth about how the children's passing. We seek to memorialize the missing children. We also seek meaningful ways to support survivors and intergenerational survivors on their healing journey so that they and their future generations may thrive. To sign a sacred covenant with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Vancouver is to enact important steps of contrition, be it confirming historical records, sharing truths, and commitments to action. To sign it on Easter Sunday is a symbolic and significant step forward. My hope is that other archdioceses will undertake similar acts of contrition, with many First Nations undertaking the same investigative work we are at the former residential schools and missing children in their jurisdiction. Cookstjatchen.
Thank you very much, Cookby, for those opening remarks. Again, we will be taking questions and opening the chat after Archbishop Miller. At this time, it's my honor to call upon the Archbishop Miller of the Archdiocese of Vancouver to say some opening remarks. Archbishop, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. I'm joining you all today on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. First, of course, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to the Kamloops Nation and Cookby Roseanne Casimir, specifically for her leadership, her openness, her engagement as we walk together this path of reconciliation. But I think today especially, I want to thank her for her courage and strength for being here despite breaking her leg. We're all praying, Chief Roseanne, for your speedy recovery. I also want to acknowledge that we are here in the spirit of the continuation of the developing relationship that Pope Francis recognized during his penitential pilgrimage to Canada in July of 2022, after Chief Roseanne had met with him earlier in the year. When the Pope spoke in Edmonton, the Holy Father asked us to find, this is important, concrete ways to walk together and to penetrate hearts. Over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to meet with current and former chiefs and council members numerous times, as have others here in the Archdiocese, and I have grown in respect and admiration for them. In addition to Cookby Roseanne Casimir, I'd also like to acknowledge two other individuals, former Tk'emlúps Chief Manny Jules and former Assembly of First Nations Chief Phil Fontaine. Both helped develop, as you heard already, an early draft of the covenant. This draft was fundamentally important as it launched us on the path that we are walking today. My interactions with leaders, elders, and community members have helped us to learn so much about our shared history and about the actual experiences of the people, the children, and the families of those who attended the former residential school. Today, I am reminded of the words I shared with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which met in Vancouver in 2013. This is what I said on that occasion, expressing apology. With its teaching that all people are brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of the Creator, the gospel of Christ calls us to address with humility and with honesty the ways in which we fostered colonialism, racism, and policies of assimilation and the suppression of traditional Aboriginal ways of life. Truly, the residential school system did do great damage to Indigenous people, especially to their language, their customs, and their traditions. Unquestionably, the church was wrong in implementing a government colonialist policy, which resulted in devastation for many children, families, and communities. We recognize, as Catholics, as the Catholic Church, our part in the resulting tragedies. But now, we wish to journey with the people of the Tk'emlúps Nation on a path to greater healing, more understanding, increased respect. For so many Indigenous and non-Indigenous people around the world, Easter represents the time, a special time of hope and renewal. And I'm grateful to the Tk'emlúps Nation for sharing this important week and as we work together to advance the cause of reconciliation. That is why I believe Easter Sunday, is the ideal time to help start a new chapter in First Nation and Catholic relations in our province of British Columbia. Our hope and our prayer is that by taking this next step, we will build on our relationship, a relationship already established, but still young, and be an example to Canadian society of respecting the identity and the experience of Indigenous peoples, which the Pope and so many others have called us to do. As we move forward together, I am inspired from past leaders of the Catholic Church and the Tk'emlúps people working together to advance the interests of Indigenous people. In our efforts to create a common historical record and shared truths, we also have to remind ourselves of meaningful historical events that demonstrate the potential of the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Tk'emlúps Nation. I'm thinking about the visit of Chief Johnny Shilhetsa and Douglas Lake Indian Band Chief Louis Klexhexen of the Kamloops Indian Band. When they met together with the Oblate priest, Father Lejeune, they went to Rome together over a century ago in 1904, and together they petitioned the Pope at the time, Pius X, to support the nation's right in their fight for jurisdiction and title over Indigenous lands. 120 years ago, these elders and leaders are providing us a shining example of the potential of our relationship, a blueprint they have given us for meaningful reconciliation that we do well to learn from. So I pray that the events of this weekend and through the signing of this sacred covenant, which will take place, that we will continue to, as Francis said, learn to walk together and to penetrate hearts together.
Thank you so very much to you both. We're going to open the chat now for any questions. We're also going to open the room as well for people to raise your hands and participate if you wish to ask questions. As you heard, Cookbee Roseanne Casimir is not with us today. I'm not with her. So we have both Cookbee Roseanne as well as the Archbishop off-site. So we actually are using two different Zoom rooms. So I'm going to unfortunately have to paraphrase your questions for them as they're not going to be able to hear you speak. But I will be able to hear you speak. It will be recorded. I will paraphrase best of my ability. So you could either enter it into the chat or you can raise your hand and ask the question, which I will then be repeating to the best of my ability, and I will check with you for clarity. What I'm going to ask you to do is first, your name, second, your media outlet, and third, who you're directing your question to. And then fourth, your question. Given the nature of how we're doing this, we're going to go to one question. Any follow-ups will have to remain to the end of today, time permitting. So make it good ones, people. I'm here to facilitate and make sure you have time for those questions. I know we have a number of people participating today. Again, state your name. Or write your name in the chat just for records, your name, because I have your names, but just make sure we know your name, your outlet, and who you're directing the question to. I see first we have Tessa Vikander. We'll go to you, Tessa, if you have a question, which you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, thanks so much. This is Tessa Vikander from CBC. The message is for...
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I'm not. Are you talking right now, Tessa? Or is it in the chat?
It's my fault here. Just give me a second.
1 second. Our apologies. Technology, like I said, it's a little bit more complicated today. But what I can tell you is, Cookbee is a very dedicated soccer player.
Okay, we're good. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're in now. So we'll go over to Tessa. Tessa Vikander.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now, and I know your name. I said it. So, which news outlet and who's your question directed to?
Yes, it's for CBC. This is from CBC, and the question is to Cookbee Roseanne Casimir. I'm wondering if she could elaborate a little bit on what is involved or what the Sacred Covenant includes.
Okay, thank you so much. So the question to you, Cookbee Casimir, is what does the Sacred Covenant include? So I would actually make that a dual question, both for, and in fact, we do have a news release that I'm going to put in the chat right now that does elaborate of the key pieces of that Sacred Covenant. So just 1 second while I do that right now. Okay, 1 second here. I got too many screens open. Bear with me while I get this popped into your, there we go. 1 second. So we do cover that one off. So I'm going to come back to you, Tess, at the end to make sure that that suits your needs, or if there's more. Again, we're going to go into further detail as well in the joint statement. So just 1 second while I save this here. Okay, and then back over there. Sorry, I did the mistake of leaving my Charger at home. Oh, goodness me.
Are you out of battery power?
No, I'm having an issue. Can you put it in, someone else put in chat? Can I forward it? Because I'm having an issue right now.
Forward it to Bill. Or forward
Do you
it-
want me to share it?
Who's
Like
speaking?
verbally? Could be Roseanne.
No, Cookby Roseanne. Sure. Why don't you read that out loud while we're going through this? I'm so sorry. I thought we had everything worked out until this additional little bemol happened. So 1 second here, please. Let me see.
So I'll put cookie on.
Excellent. So while
Yes,
she's
please.
just organizing that, so the Council of Secwépemc and the Catholic Church, we're advancing truth and reconciliation, and it's through the Sacred Covenant. Basically, it is about a shared path to truth and reconciliation. But it also reflects a mutual belief that, is about honor and it's truth, justice, and healing, and is very much necessary to help guide the future. The document, it outlines historical records, shared truths, commitments to action. And some of those commitments, just for example, is seeking fitting ways to memorialize the children of residential schools. It's about information sharing and full transparency to identify and determine the truth related to missing children. It's about the Catholic parties to offer and support the healing services for family members and others whose loved ones attended the former residential schools. And also the Catholic parties have committed to work with the Council of Secwépemc to assist in answering questions related to the work during the course of the investigation. So those are just some examples of what is going to be shared with everyone through Rizal, but that is pretty much the content. And it's about that shared path forward.
We actually have a technical issue, not on my side. It says transfer PDF files is restricted by your account admin. So we will email this out, but you now have heard it. My apologies. We are having a good old time with Zoom today. So you did hear about that. We're going to go to our next question, please. I know Tina House was after that, please.
Yes, hello, Tina House, APTN National News. This question is directed to Cookby. Cookby, can you give us an update in terms of the ISQUI and the identification, or is there an update in terms of the unmarked graves that have been, anomalies that have been discovered? Is there an update in terms of any kind of identification or anything like that?
Cookby, Cookby, Roseanne, that was a question for you, and it's Tina House asking for any sort of update on La Esquique, or also known in English as the missing.
Thank you for that question. So when we're looking at the current update right now, given the interest in our work, we are going to be providing updates at key points as determined by our investigation, and we will be sure to reach out and share. That said, we are committed to attending the final report from the special interlocuteur, Kim Murray, this June in Ottawa. And we also firmly believe that it is essential to support collaboration amongst many First Nations undertaking the sacred work of investigating the missing children from Indian residential schools now in their jurisdiction, but also dealing with a similar, as we move forward here at the Kamloops. And so there is a lot of, we call it one exgenum, which is the oral tellings, truth telling, and a lot of those are taking place to date. And we're working with other special technicians to look at that process moving forward. Thank you for the question.
Great, thank you so much. I will go next to Mike Hager. Mike Hager.
Thanks so much, Rizal. Sorry to hear about the leg, Cookby Casimir. I am also kind of on that, in that same vein. I believe that the Kamloops got funding to for a project up until the end of 2023. Can you just tell us if excavation, if that part has been completed by now?
Mike, if I recollect, you're with the Globe and Mail. I'm just going to ask everybody,
sorry,
please reiterate where you're calling in from. It is a question for, I believe, Cookby Casimir. I also see your hand up, Delana. I also go to the questions in the chat in just a minute. So Cookby Casimir, the question was about the funding that you received, I think, to the end of 2023, and if excavations have, whereas you said completed, is that what you said? Completed at this time. So I believe that question was already answered where we're at in the investigation, and it's still the archival research. And it was also part of the media release. But again, I'll go back over to you, Cookby, if you want to reiterate that part.
Yes, thank you for that question. We have not started excavation. That is a very sensitive step moving forward, and definitely would entail a lot of steps in place, and conversations and working with our survivors and our community, but also the nations that have also been impacted. And we're still at the oral tellings with the truth telling part of it.
Thank you so much. So as far as any further questions about updates of where Kamloops is at, I think we've covered it off. We're going to ask you to stick to the Sacred Covenant at this time on what this next step is about. So I'm going to go over now to Delana. Delana, please proceed with your question.
Okay, thanks so much, Marcel. My name is Delana Nisha. I'm asking a question for CFJC TV in Kamloops. I also posted it in the chat, Marcel, so disregard the chat message. I have a question for Archbishop Miller. With residential school denialism accusations coming forward to Kamloops, various First Nations who have shared their information around missing children from the residential school system. Does the church plan to address those accusations in support of those nations who have come forward?
That's a very good question, Delana. And of course, we do not back up or support those who deny the tragic events of Kamloops at residential schools. I think the church has been pretty clear, very clear, in fact, about the tragedy of the residential school system, the degree to which the Catholic parties collaborated with the government, and there's no question that this was a tragedy in the past. And those who claim that it wasn't, I think, are certainly misplaced in their judgment.
Hey, muted. I'm good now. Thank you so very much. And that you saw me on the phone, was not ignoring you. There were some things on the back end and the front end and the side end, but now we finally have that news release for today. So I don't see any more hands raised here, so I'm going to go over to the chat and see if there's additional. There we go. Ben and Miljur from CTV News, have records and archives been made available to the First Nations so far? Ben, are you referring specifically in regards to the Roman Catholic sacramental records and such? I would assume so, but I'm just making sure that that's the case. If you just want to clarify that question there. Oh, yes. So, so Ben from CTV, have records and archives been made available to the First Nation, aka Secwépemc to Secwépemc so far, and I will ask that, well, to Archbishop and or Cookby Roseanne. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Yes, certainly the Archdiocese of Vancouver has made available all the records that are available, and we want to do that. We're also working on a project that will make it easier in the future for families looking for answers, making databases more searchable, more accessible, because certainly we believe that there is no step forward without acknowledging the truth that is in the past, and so much of that is available through records. So it's certainly our desire that all records be shared. There is nothing to be gained by not sharing records completely. The odd time it's difficult just to find them, but we're certainly engaged in doing that and ensuring that that can be done and that full access is available to all parties concerned. It's a very important step of moving forward.
So just for a point of clarity, Archbishop, I just want to be clear that that's all the records that are in your hands, but I know that from my understanding, what's been shared with us is there's records that are in Montreal, there's records in the Vatican, right. So full collaboration here locally, but there's still other parts that my understanding that will gain access to. Is that correct?
I think that's probably correct. I certainly don't know about, access to the archives in the Vatican. I do know in Canada that the bishops and the entities are really very willing and want to share their records. But I can't speak for any other particular entity, but would encourage everyone to make all records available insofar as I have any say in the matter.
So we have a question from Michael Potestio from Castanet for Cookby Roseanne. I believe some of this was answered, but maybe we'll just put a point on this one. Are there any plans to conduct excavation work at the site of the probable graves in 2024? I believe you addressed this one again prior, Cookby, but we'll just make sure it's very clearly understood where we're at.
Yes. Any kind of discussion in regards to excavation is very intrusive and is going to really be a huge dialogue and supports that are going to be put in place for our people and the survivors, and also working in collaboration with other communities as we move forward. And we're not at that point yet, so that we're still very early.
Yes. Thank you for that. And as somebody who works very directly with Tecumseh on the Esquikwe, just for your understanding, there's 4 major draws of First Nations, so the Syilx, the Statlium, the other Secwépemc communities, and the Nekatmach Nation that are the main draws of where many of the students came from, but not the only ones. I know we've cited numbers in the past, so there is work to do with them as well. So we have a question for l'Archevêque Miller. So it's from William Burr, and as you know, I am bilingual, so I'm going to ask it in French and ask for une réponse en français. So, William, si vous pouvez. So, William Burr de Radio-Canada, est-ce que l'archevêque Millier pourrait décrire en français la cérémonie qui va avoir lieu dimanche et l'accord entre l'Archdiocese et les nations comme le Secwépemc et sa signification? I just want to be clear before you answer this question. Archbishop, we are not disclosing all the activities that are taking place as these are closed events. Very unfortunately, we have had to, and you've seen this in the news in the past, there has been people being very inappropriate and disruptive about certain activities. So we are not publishing all the activities that are going on prior to the event, but we will be sharing after the event so that people who choose to participate may do so in peace. So as far as the ceremony, I think c'est une question pour dimanche. And je vous invite à demander une entrevue avec l'archevêque à ce moment. Mais vous avez également une question sur l'accord entre l'Archdiocèse et les nations comme le Secwépemc et sa signification. Celui-là, je pense que c'est quelque chose qu'on a déjà touché. Donc, je vous invite, l'archevêque Millier, pour votre réponse. Si vous pouvez.
Avec mon français un peu pauvre, je peux dire que l'accord, c'est une étape très extraordinaire dans les relations entre les autochtones de Kamloops et de l'archidiocèse de Vancouver et aussi le diocèse de Kamloops. Alors, pour moi, c'est un signe des relations qui, à travers des années, se sont améliorées beaucoup. Et je suis très impressionné par ce que on a fait à Kamloops pour améliorer les relations communes. L'accord, c'est un accord, on l'appelle un accord, un testament sacré. Alors, ça veut dire que c'est vraiment, ce n'est pas seulement un contrat entre deux parties, c'est vraiment quelque chose qui touche le cœur de tous nos autres. Et c'est pour ça que le jour de Pâques, qu'on va souligner ensemble l'accord. Alors, c'est un peu quelque chose, oui, de cœur. Ce n'est pas seulement un contrat. Ça, c'est trop froid. Ça montre au contraire quelque chose de plus chaleureux entre les deux parties.
Merci infiniment, l'archevêque. Our last question that I see here is from un gros merci de William Burr. So merci l'archevêque pour votre commentaire. So Kathleen Martins, APTN News, is asking, is there a financial commitment from the church as part of this agreement? How much is it and what will it be used for? And the question is either for Cookby or the Archbishop. I'll turn to you, Archbishop, for this question. I'll repeat it again. Is there a financial commitment from the church as part of this agreement? How much is it and what will it be used for? And
there certainly is a financial commitment that is part of certainly of the Archdiocese of Vancouver's commitment. I can only speak for the Archdiocese, but we have pledged $2.5 million over the next 5 years for initiatives involved with reconciliation and healing. So far, we have contributed $1.2 million for several always Indigenous-led projects around the project, and we're certainly looking forward to finding more ways to support Cookby Roseanne's priorities.
Thank you so much for that, Archbishop. I think we're coming to the planned time that we had for this, and that was a question, just a clarification question, Archbishop. Is this the $2.5 million previously announced?
Yes, this is the $2.5 million previously announced. It is.
So it's not additional money, but it is those monies that are part of this.
But I think what we want to, I'd like to make clear is that it's certainly, although a lot of the funding, of course, is for projects within the Archdiocese of Vancouver as it currently exists, that we also acknowledge that for a long time, the Diocese of Kamloops was part of the Archdiocese of Vancouver and are welcoming Indigenous-led initiatives to apply for a grant.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'm just checking. I don't see any more hands raised. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I'm just going to go up. William Burr, vas-y.
Yes, if it's hello, Marcel. Bonjour. Merci beaucoup pour la réponse en français. I'm just wondering, and maybe it's not relevant, but I'm just wondering, because there was already cooperation between the First Nation and the Archdiocese, just what will be really changing concretely as a result of this new sacred covenant? Maybe it's already been described enough already, but I'm just thinking of examples of how it will change. I'll ask in English, and if any answer in French is possible too, either to the chief or to the Archbishop.
Sure. So the question from William Burr is about, there seems to be a good working relationship between the Archdiocese and Te Kamloops te Secwépemc, and basically, is this accord necessary? Again, I'm going to refer you to some of the key points that are indicated in the news release that I did finally get into the chat. That was read out by Cookby Roseanne Casimir, and we will go into some further details after Sunday. Mike Hager.
Sorry, me again. Globe and Mail. This is for Archbishop Miller. Can you tell me how much money has the Archdiocese paid to residential school survivors to date?
It depends. Altogether, you know, we were certainly parties to the agreement several years ago reached between all of the Catholic entities and in the residential school agreement. But most recently, of our pledge of $2.5 million, we have already granted for $1.2 million.
So you can't say how much has been given as restitution to survivors?
Not altogether, not off the top of my head.
Okay, so I think that's a good follow-up question. I see Julio Rivas from EFE. Hola, Julio, welcome. And his question is for the Archbishop Miller. I believe that this is the first agreement of this kind with the Catholic Church. What made possible for the Archdiocese of Vancouver to reach the agreement with the Kamloops?
Well, I think you're right. I think it is. As far as I know, it is the first such agreement. And it was really, I think, the work of Manny Jules, Chief Manny Jules, and Phil and Chief Fontaine, working with the Kamloops First Nation, especially with Cookby Roseanne, that sort of pushed this idea forward. This is something that came from the Kamloops, working with the Archdiocese of Vancouver and with the Diocese of Kamloops. So it is the first, and we owe a lot to the initiative of the chiefs and their councils and members who have come forward to do this. In many ways, we're respondents, and I think that's something that I hope is emphasized. And the idea of a sacred covenant, which goes far beyond a memo of understanding or a simple agreement, is something that to which we owe a great deal to Cookby Roseanne and some of her predecessors and those who've worked with her. So.
Yes, and just for clarity, you were referring to former Cookby Manny Jules and
Yes.
former National Chief Phil
National
Fontaine
Chief Phil
of the
Fontaine,
Assembly of First
indeed.
Nations. And
Indeed.
And also, as we made note of that, both of that and their titles in the news release, we also noted as well that this also went back into community, and as well as on your side with some of your historians, and there was some key elements brought forward that you mentioned in your comments earlier about some precedent setting as well. And so you'll find some of those answers indeed in the news release, which hopefully you can access. Please take the time to download it. I will email to everybody. I sent this invitation out. We will also follow up on Monday morning with a joint statement about all the activities, who was in attendance, all the things that happened, as well as footage and as well as some photos. Again, we ask very clearly, not asking, we're telling you clearly that Sunday is a closed event. No media is to be around these events. This is for the peace and calm of the people participating. Some activities are happening that have spiritual aspects to it on both sides. So allow us to undertake this in peace. Please respect that this is a no-go zone for media on Sunday, but we will do our very best to share key elements of that with you for first thing Monday morning. So I will be making sure it's sent into all your inboxes. My goal is to have everything sent in to you so you can access these items for 6 a.m. on Monday. We will, of course, send out the link to this footage, and we will, of course, send out from today, as well as the news release if you haven't already downloaded. So with that, everybody, I want to thank you very much. And Cookby Roseanne, please do take care now. We appreciate you so much in joining us, and we wish you safe healing with your leg, and and thank you again so much, Archbishop Miller. We look forward to receiving you later this week in community. Cooks Chacham, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.